Well, now, it's that time again. You see, I keep wondering how to start this thing. You know what? This is just me going to start it. There's a lot to talk about, as usual, but today I'm going to kind of wing it. I didn't come in here with any preconceived notions of what I wanted to talk about. I just want to kind of go over the things that keep popping into my head. Because I'm guessing the things that pop into my head might be the same kind of things that pop into yours when we're wondering about this team. The smaller things, the little things that are on the periphery that we kind of know about, but we don't really see. So join me, your bearded bard, for Bluster and Blue Jays. Episode 4. I did the pause because I would love to see that as my thumbnail. Actually, no, I wouldn't. That would be bad. That would probably be a very, very, very bad thing. But what can you do? All right. So they've done pretty good this time around for the past week. You know, they've been in all the games they've played. They've had some good showings. Alan Roden has definitely been somebody who was mentioned before spring training started. A lot of us knew what he was capable of, but the question is, does he start taking over, like overtaking guys like Loperfido or Clase? Does he take over guys like Schneider or Addison Barger? As a left-handed contact hitter with some power, I think he's the guy. I think you have to use the guys that are doing well. He's 25 years old now, so it's not like he's very young when it comes to a prospect. He's around that age, maybe a little older than you'd hope, but 25 seems to be a pretty good starting point for a lot of guys coming in, especially ones that are in college ball, things like that don't have that instant credibility and pedigree like somebody like Vlad Guerrero had. So he's just worked hard, and he's become probably the best outfield prospect we've had coming out of here in ages. Because as I've said, and it was mentioned on the broadcasts by the Sportsnet fellas a couple times, we don't develop outfielders. Well, outfielders and pitchers. We were doing catching for a while there, but we got rid of them all. Now our depth is kind of low. We're going to touch on that as well. But it amazes me that that's the biggest thing here that I'm taking away, is that we still don't develop outfield prospects. We traded for all of our good outfield prospects. So it goes back to what I said last week about these guys can build a roster, but they can't build a sustainable winner because they don't seem to be good at, getting those diamond in the rough kind of players who develop into something great. I think Don Mattingly, for example, was, he was 52nd round or something ridiculous like that back in the day when they had a billion rounds during the draft. And he became one of the best first basemen ever. There's so many guys who were drafted really, really late who developed into great, great stars. And we need to get back to that. We need to start finding those diamonds in the rough, or better yet, we need to develop better. Now, is it that we're getting guys who have, they have the talent, but are we developing them right? I don't know. It makes you wonder if they have the same ideas running through the entire organization. And they say they do, but do they really? Because you have to have that personal touch from somebody. Somebody's got to tell you you're doing good or you're doing bad. Someone's got to tell you how to tweak things. Like Ryan Yarbrough said, part of the reason he came back as a left-handed pitcher for us was because he felt familiar with Pete Walker and the guys. He knew that he could trust what they were saying to him, and he knew that when they made fixes that they actually worked. And that's generally what's happened with Pete Walker most of his tenure here. He's been known as a pitching guru who can turn guys around. Robbie Ray was one. He worked with J Happ, Marco Estrada. Back in the day, there were a lot of guys that he was really keen on developing and did a really, really good job with. Now, the guys last year, we thought they were more, the greatest, but you got to remember our bullpen was decimated by injury, and our starting rotation, they did a pretty good job, but they definitely took a step back a little bit. Guys are getting older, and that, of course, is one of the big things right now that we're worried about. Gosman's in his mid-30s, Bassett's in his late 30s, Barrios is in his early 30s, and, well, Scherzer, he's only here for a year, but, 40. Okay, so we got Bowden Francis, who's in his late 20s, and Jake Bloss, who I think he's 26. I really hope some of the guys who've gone on injury for pitching develop better and they do come up even after having their Tommy Johns, because we need something. You know, Kloffenstein was looking like a great pick for us, and then he got traded, and he's back again, and he's a maybe. It just seems to be a lot of maybes for us again. And I think that's what's driving everybody crazy is there's nothing we can really set ourselves on for a definitive thing. Even with our star players, with Guerrero, well, we hope he does another season like he did last year. But as I've said before, he hasn't had back-to-back seasons like that. Bo Bichette, same thing. Well, Bo's at least had back-to-back seasons, back-to-back-to-back seasons of doing really, really well. And I think his injuries derailed him. So I think he's going to be a mega force coming through this, coming through. But those are our superstars. And we see the decent bat to ball skills. The management seems keen on guys who know how to hit the ball. It's great. Know how to hit the ball. That's fantastic. But you've also got to learn how to, know how to do situational hitting. So this Popkins guy that's come over from Minnesota to become our hitting coach, I'm hoping he can do with some of the hitters what Pete Walker's been able to do with the pitchers. Because Guillermo Martinez, as great as he was for a while there, I mean, he was our hitting coach in 21 when we were the best hitting team in baseball, and his talent was taken away from him a lot. But the talent he did have didn't really take any steps forward. That's a problem. And if they're not taking the step forward, you got to change it. So I was reading about Popkins, I believe it's David Popkins, and what he's saying is he wants guys to have a creative look on how to do things, that they shouldn't just look for a one outcome while they're up to bat. It has to depend on the situation. It has to depend on who's pitching. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. Not to go into it just saying, I need to do this. You know what your strengths are, but sometimes you have to do something that plays the percentages a little bit better. That's fine. But he just wants to change our approach, which is what we needed. We tried that with Mattingly as the coordinator last year. It didn't work. So bring in new people. That's exactly what they needed to do. Now, hoping that hitting philosophy goes up and down the entire organization. And hopefully we're drafting guys who can handle what we want to do. But we don't really know that. So, who are some of these coaches that we have? I've been looking at the rosters here and seeing who's been taking care of us. So, let's see here. Yeah, Ms. David Popkins is a new hitting coach. We have Lou and Audie as our assistant hitting coach. Hunter Mentz, who stayed over from the previous regime, is the other assistant hitting coach. That's 3 hitting coaches on the major league team. These expanded coaching I'm starting to wonder if it works. I understand you want to give information, have different guys who maybe can see things differently or whatever, but I don't know if having all of the 3 dudes just for the major league team is worth it. They never used to have that, and it seemed to work fine. I'm starting to wonder if you're overloading these players with information. What if one of these guys says one thing, the other guy says something else, and you want to have some kind of focus into one thing. So hopefully they all take their thing, Dave Popkins and, Ionati and Hunter Mentz, extend that and work with what he said. But I wonder if guys like that will. Hunter Mentz has been here since the other regime, so is he willing to make those changes? I don't know. And also, just looking through, special shout out to Alex Andriopoulos, who has been the bullpen catcher for God knows how long. And again, for guys like DeMarlo Hale, who is our associate manager. I didn't know he had one of those. See, Don Mattingly is the bench coach, and DeMarlo Hale is the associate manager. I don't really understand these breakdowns. We got another bullpen catcher named Luis Hurtado. Welcome. John Lennon is our Major League Mental Performance Coach. That I can understand. This is just the Major League ones. I can't even imagine what is down in the minors. But Anthony Santander said he came here because of the facilities that we've got to make him better. And that's great. Have your facilities, but make sure they're actually doing something. Okay. So off on that, I think coaching is just too much now. There's just too much. We need to be simplified again. And I think that will make things better personally, but I'm not there. What the hell do I know? That's just a personal opinion. Now, the other thing I was reading, people talking about Bo now that Vlad's kind of gone past his extension and has decided he wants to test free agency, which he says now. I mean, there's a possibility that that's not what he does. I mean, there's no finality to everything. If the Jays have an amazing season and he loves playing with the people he played with, he'll stay here. He might test free agency. He might not. I don't know. As it stands now, he won't, or he will. So, what's the next move? Bo's the next move. And apparently they're open to extending Bo. They've been saying that in internal things, but they're going to leave it up to Bo if Bo wants to play here. Interesting idea. A lot of people think Bo doesn't want to be here. They just think that's the way it is. He just doesn't want to be part of this team. I don't think that's true. I think Bo is just not as flashy as he comes across because of that, the locks, the Bo flow that he had for a while. There's no flow anymore. So without that flow, what are you going to do? Well, he's just who he is. That's just who he is. He's a quieter guy. He just is. He goes in and gets his work done. He works hard. He's looking forward to playing with Angel Jimenez because of the defensive prowess that Jimenez gets or can give him. And it'll also help him defensively because now he gets to play with one second baseman. Last year we used six. So if you have all those guys, all those middle infielder dudes who are just putting around each of them trying to do better than the other, and they all kind of did the same. Will Wagner, I think, personally took a little bit of a step forward. And I think that's why he's on the radar. Like if today I was to bring up guys that were going to be our fourth outfielder, backup infielders, it would be absolutely Will Wagner, okay, and absolutely Alan Roden. Those would be the two guys who are absolute for sure. And if Orelvis is doing okay, I know some people want him to come up because of the power to replace Ernie Clement. He'll probably, I'm guessing, start in AAA to make sure that he is where he needs to be. And he's only 23, so that works out well. Like we've been here about Orelvis Martinez for years, and he's only 23 years old. So that bodes well. I think he will be, well, if things stay the way they can, if Bo stays and Angel stays, well, I'm saying stays. He's here for 6 years, I think. We need a third baseman. We don't need a shortstop or a second baseman. And Orelvis is playing a lot of second, but he has done third. So he'll be our third baseman. That would be ideal going forward in the future. But the other bench player for now, aside from the backup catcher, who will probably be Tyler Heineman, but I'm hoping Christian Betancourt gets a chance at things. Who do you reward? Do you give it to Schneider because he's been here for a while? Do you give it to Barger? You got to give it to somebody who can play everywhere, I think. And at this point, it's probably Schneider because he can play second, he can play left. He can probably play first in a pinch. He's one of those guys who can kind of play everywhere, but I don't think he's a floor raiser anymore. And I want someone who's going to be a floor raiser. So what do we need? Well, Miles Straw or Clase, I'm pretty sure they're out of options at this point. So those are the kind of guys you look for as bench speed, defensive replacement, that kind of thing. I don't think we need a super utility guy. I think a lot of our guys can already play a few different positions. So that's your third because you've got your starting 9, plus you're going to have 13 pitchers. It's 22. And with the 26-man roster, you got 3 guys to go through all that, right? So you got your backup catcher, backup infielder, backup outfielder. Do we trust Tyler Heineman to be the backup catcher? The team seems to like him. I mean, he's come and gone a few times. It's like him and Reese McGuire were kind of rotating through us for some reason. I don't know why. It just seemed to be that way. Both played for Boston, just like Danny played for Boston. Reese played for both of us. Tyler, it's weird. It's weird how our catching has been kind of intertwined with the Red Sox a little bit. Very strange. But it's another thing that goes to show that we are not developing any catchers to come up behind Kirk. Now, the scuttlebutt is Kirk has been doing a lot better. He's got himself in better playing shape. He apparently has a lot more energy. He's quicker. He's throwing the ball pretty good to the bases and whatnot. Now with the automated balls and strike system, it kind of takes away his superpower of pitch framing. Now with maybe not this year, but going forward, because you can only get 2 challenges a game. But if you keep getting the challenges right, they keep rolling over. Just like any challenge that baseball's had before when it comes to replays and stuff like that. So it's a challenge system now. Do you like the challenge system? Scherzer doesn't. Max Scherzer does not like this system at all. He just wants people to do it. I think with the egregious errors that are shown, I don't think umpires are. I think they're better overall. Like I think I keep talking about floors and ceilings, but they've definitely raised their floor for sure. But there are guys that are just horrendous. Like Angel Hernandez, thank God he's gone. One of the worst guys. You could see it. If you can see it, it's bad. And there were a few guys, but the shout out to the guys who do the umpire scorecards on X. Hopefully they'll be on Blue Sky because I refuse to be on X. They put out scorecards every day about how umpires have done, and they're graded. A lot of the grades are amazing. I don't mind a few mistakes. It's going to happen. It's just baseball. It's the egregious ones that are bad. Like the really, really egregious errors. I watched one about with Angel Hernandez where each pitch was at least 6 to 8 inches off the plate on the outside from a right-handed batter, and he called strike on every single one of them. Boom, boom, boom. 1, 2, 3. These things can't happen. So hopefully the ABS can help eliminate that a little bit. It's good to use the technology we have these days to help. Tennis didn't want to do anything for their lines for the longest time. Now, can you imagine tennis not having that replay anymore? The NFL apparently is thinking of having computers, mark each of the downs, your first, second, third, fourth downs. It's going to be done by computer. Everything, the NHL does the same thing. They use computers as well for the replays and things like that. Replay, it's probably one of the greatest things to ever happen to sports and level the playing field a little bit. Oh, by the way, replays were done by Canadian. Yeah, that's a Canadian invention. Yeah. Do you like the ABS? Let me know in the comments. Again, I'll be on Spotify. I'm trying to work on getting myself on the Apple Place and the Amazon Place. But for now, it's on Spotify and YouTube. I would really like to get the subscriber base banged up on my YouTube. So as I should have said before, like and subscribe would be a wonderful thing. Comment if you can. I would love to start building a few of these episodes based on what you guys want to hear. I'll keep giving shout outs to my 2 favorite podcasters, the Walk-Off guys, Scott Belford and Adam Mack. Wonderful fellas. I highly recommend seeing them. They get a lot of good guys on there. They get a lot of great content. I'm pushing. The Blue Jays Today guys are fantastic. They're young. They're hungry. They've been doing this for a while, and they know how to produce a good-looking little podcast. So I'll have to shout out to the boys as well. Eventually, I'd like to have some of them on the show, talk about this kind of stuff, because it's weird talking about these things all by myself. But it's something that needs to be done. I like to voice my opinion on things, and I think for the longest time I've kind of stepped away from it. But not anymore. The other thing, excuse me, wow. Well, that's what happens when you're recording live. My goodness gracious. And the last thing I want to talk about is what kind of general manager would you like to bring in if we were to start over again? Because I think even if we do a good enough season, I think there's too much animosity that Mr. Ed Rogers is going to have to can Atkins. It just is. Regardless how well he might do, he could bat 1,000 of all of his transactions he does, and he's still going to get the same thing. So, do we want someone who's established? Someone like James Click, everybody mentions him because he's part of the organization now. Even David Bell, who's now a vice president of baseball operations, who's, his family goes back generations. Do you want these kind of guys running things, or do you think we need young blood? Somebody new, like back in the day, Alex Anthopoulos was new. Back in the Andrew Friedman was fairly new when he was with the Rays, and they've developed into fantastic general managers in general, right? I don't think we have anybody like that internally. And I won't profess to know those kind of candidates in baseball, but I'm just looking at the overall aspect. We want a guy in his, late 30s who has his own way of doing things that might seem a little different, or we want an old school guy who knows how to build? It's tough to say. You know, I think the old school mentality is slowly disappearing in general. Because baseball isn't the same as it used to be. A lot of these rules are bringing back some of the pacing aspects of things, and making baseball more of a faster, involved game, which has worked immensely well. I think the implementation of the pitch clock was the best thing that they've done in forever, in addition to expanding the playoffs. Because, again, as I've said, that gives people more chances to see their team possibly win something, keeps more fans involved. But is a young guy what you need, or do you need like a senior upper level management guy to guide a younger guy? Do we want that? Because if there's one thing the Jays have always done, generally, is he's always hired outside the box. Pat Gillick was like that when he got hired. Nobody expected him to be a GM, and he became, a Hall of Famer as a general manager. We had Bobby Cox for a while. No one had him up, and now he became one of the best managers ever. All of our men, like Jimmy Williams, Jimmy Wenham was off our staff. Seal Gaston was off of our staff, and they did pretty well, But it's always been the guy we've hired internally, generally. I mean, Tim Johnson was a fiasco. And it's funny, you never, ever, ever heard from him again in any respect, which I find interesting because a lot of guys got forgiven for a lot of things and brought back into baseball. But I know he lied about his war record. I mean, that's weird. But for that to be the thing that's kept you out of baseball for 25 years, that's just crazy. Anyway, JP Ricciardi, another one of those hires as a GM that was weird. Gord Ash was an internal hire as a general manager. We have a lot of guys who was their first thing they ever did. That's fine. I think Jim Fregosi was the only manager I think we hired that had previous experience in the last 30 years. So I know that's generally done. So they will talk about and do what the management says and follow along with them. But maybe we need somebody to come in and shake it up. So to me, that means somebody who has some experience, even if it's being Andrew Friedman's right-hand person or something, or somebody who's been with a winning organization. And David Popkins is like that. We took him. He was hitting coach from the Dodgers and the Minnesota Twins were both decent hitting teams. So there's a good example for a coaching side. But now, how about to run the team? Who's going to run this team? Is Ed making the decisions? There's a lot of gray area with our management. Getting a hold of people in the Blue Jays executive and in their front offices is very, very difficult in general. I've been trying to get a hold of the Alumni Association for a while because I have a great idea for expansions of this podcast. I want to talk to the old players. I want to see what some of the old guys thought about playing in Toronto back in the day when it was really not a place you wanted to play. Or talk to the guys who've been here for a while and just loved Toronto and became superstars here. The 50th anniversary is in 2 years of this team. 50 years. And I'd love to use this as a lead into that 50 years, but getting a hold of the Alumni Association, and it's not just me. There's another fella that I know who just finished writing a book. I'm not going to mention his name in accordance to this because I don't know how it would affect him, but he's around the team quite a bit, wrote a book. He also tried to get hold of the Alumni Association. He's somebody who has really, really great contacts, and he couldn't either. You cannot directly call anybody, and I get that for a major league team, but it's very strange how closed off they are from the basic people around them. Even people on the periphery of the team who follow the team all the time or cover the team all the time. There's too much secrecy involved in this. There's too much analytic crap. There's too much saying what needs to be said in their eyes, as opposed to telling people what's actually going on. It's almost like the entire front office is being run by AI or something. I've said this. Shaq Hins is like an AI robot. And I think if you're going to make your next step in rebuilding everything here, you need somebody who can speak well. You need like a Dusty Baker type. Dave Dombrowski would be a great idea for something like that. People like that who will speak their minds. Because fans aren't stupid. Information's everywhere. Pictures are everywhere. Video everywhere. We're not dumb people. They know what's going on. They just want to be told. And they want to be trusted. And it's almost like there's no trust in the fans that we know what needs to go on. And that makes fans into just terrible, terrible, terrible fans. Transparency hopefully will at least lend you some credibility. And when you're not transparent enough with a major league team, your credibility is shot. So this regime doesn't have what it takes to build a sustained winner. They didn't do it in Cleveland. They kind of did. They were doing well, but then they just didn't. And then they came here and same thing. They did really well, but didn't. So when those guys are gone, I'm very curious to see what kind of jobs they get, if they get any. So going forward, we're going into the first week of March now, because this is Monday. And I will be popping these up on Mondays from now. And I did say Sunday when I first started doing this, but Monday seems a little more fair. Sets you up for the week of what's coming up. So we have our usual things for this week. You're going to probably start seeing some cuts happening this week. And one of the things they've talked about that they're changing is they want to give most of the players that they're considering are going to be actually on the team more at bats during spring training games than they have in the past, because they've always been trying other players and letting them get their feet wet and introduce them to the process and blah, blah, blah. Last year was a little different because we had a lot of guys challenging for certain spots, but I think they have an idea of what they want now and who's going to be where. So unless somebody knocks them off their seats with how they performed, it's going to be what I've already anticipated being, which means they can give those players more at bats, more time in the field, that kind of stuff. We did see a lot of kids in the first week or so of the games, which has been fantastic to watch on Sportsnet, by the way. So going forward, I think you're going to see a huge amount of cuts this week, and you're going to see them focusing on the players they really need to be focused on, which is our team and our AAA team. So guys like Arjun Namali will go down. Those type of players are going to go back down to the minor league complex, and they'll just work from there. But look forward to seeing these guys battle. It's going to be a great spring training to watch these guys battle and see who actually gets these spots, because it's really close. It's really close. No one stepped up yet. They're all prospects. Let's see which one of these 6 or 7 outfield prospects takes that step forward. Which one of these 5 or 6 infield prospects takes that step forward. That's how you build a winner. What they've tried to do forever. Same can be said in the bullpen. I'm hoping to get somebody like Tommy Nance gets a shot, or Brendan Little makes it in there. There's lots of guys for those spots. I really hope Ryan Yarbrough does come back and be our second lefty, because he has such a different look on things. This next week is all about the battles, okay, and avoiding injury. Let's see how that works out. And I'm very curious to see over the long term how Max Scherzer's presence changes everything for the mentality of this team, because I think he's one guy who can change your mentality. And I think sometimes when you're talking with on the cusp players, you need to give them that extra little edge. And I think he will. So there's my half-hour ramble. And I know I went from all over the place to all over the place to all over the place. And I also will have to forgive you for the weird, the light of my glasses. But I need my glasses. So if you have any questions, comments, or anything you want to say, if you want to berate me in the comments, please feel free to do so on YouTube under Tallboy Speaks. That will be where you will find me. At Tallboy Speaks is also my Instagram, and it is also my Blue Sky. Oh, isn't that interesting? Pardon me. Again, live recording. I'm doing it earlier because, I get the sun from the side as opposed to the darkness you see the last 3 times I've done this when I've done it late. So hopefully this looks a little bit better for you as well. And I hope you're enjoying what you've heard so far. Hopefully my dulcet tones are keeping you impressed and keeping you here. And again, I want to hear what other people want to talk about, because it's not a very huge spring training for a lot of stories. So if there's things you want to talk about in general, let's talk about those things in general, even if it's to do with baseball in general, because that's we're probably focused next week on a few things about just baseball is what we're going to talk about. And we're going to go from there. All right. So again, thank you so much for tuning into Bluster and Blue Jays. I am the bearded bard, Jeff Morton, and hopefully I will get to see you again soon. And hopefully that is siren that's going by. Oh, my dear Lord, the downtown sounds are the crazies. Hopefully somebody's okay. Have a wonderful week, folks. Watch some Blue Jays games, come up with some ideas, and send them off to me. And I hope you guys have a great week. Cheers.